Hello, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'm the host here at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, the show where we connect your modern life to your Hungarian heritage by building bridges and connecting the circles of Hungarians around us. This podcast is a place where everyone is welcome, where you don't even need to be Hungarian or speak Hungarian to join in on the fun. Each week, we will talk about all the things that we love about Hungary and Hungarian people. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or if you're looking to dive deeper, then this is the place to be. Thanks for joining us today. On this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, we will be talking about a very important topic to our Hungarian heritage, and that's Hungarian folk dancing. My special guests today are Cathy Lamont and Joseph Kroupa from the Tisza Dance Ensemble in the Washington, D.C. area. They will discuss how they both got started with Hungarian dancing, the different types of folk dances, where Tisza Dance Ensemble performs, and a very big milestone that they will be celebrating this year. And I usually say, let's dive into the episode, but I think it would be more fitting to say, let's dance into this episode, because you will definitely want to dust off your dancing shoes after listening to all the great things that Cathy and Joseph have to say about the Tisza Dance Ensemble. So welcome to this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. Today we're speaking with Cathy Lamont and Joseph Kroupa from the Tisza Dance Ensemble, which is a traditional Hungarian folk dance group. Thank you both for being here today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So I think before we, dive in or dance into all the things that we're going to talk about, I want to say congratulations and happy 40th anniversary to the dance ensemble. That's quite an accomplishment. Yeah. This dance ensemble has been around for 40 years. So congratulations and happy anniversary, because dancing is an important aspect of really any heritage, but we're here to talk about Hungarian heritage, and it does really help preserve the past. So over the past 40 years, I'm sure you've done a lot of things, but let's start out with how the Tisza Dance Ensemble got started.
Wasn't that on a dare?
Well, I've danced all my life. And in college, I got involved in international folk dancing.
Okay.
But since I'm the kind of person who always likes to delve deeper into things, rather than just skim the surface with 3 minutes of Bulgarian dance and 3 minutes of Scandinavian and that kind of thing, the way the recreational dance groups are set up. When the dance house movement began in Hungary, the teachers began to come over here. And I was just captivated by the music and challenged by the creativity of the dances. They're never the same twice, and no two couples on the floor doing the same thing at the same time. And so I went to a few workshops here in this country, sponsored by some Americans and some teachers from Hungary, and decided I just didn't want to do anything else anymore. I wanted to immerse myself in Hungarian culture, which I did. I started learning the language and made plans to live abroad in Hungary for a year, and started Tisza Ensemble.
Wow, that's a pretty inspiring story. Before we unpack a few of the things that you've just said, I think it's important that maybe we talk about the word táncház and the táncház movement. And the word táncház is a combination of two Hungarian words, tánc, to dance, and ház, meaning house. So it's kind of like dancing in the house. So it was a movement. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, that it was a movement, and why it became a movement?
Yes. It does mean dance house, and it started in the Transylvanian town of Szék, where it's a pretty big town. They have 3 streets. And when people wanted to dance, they didn't really have a hall or anything to do that in. So they would find someone who had a big house, and they would rent that house for the evening. And there were different táncház for different streets in the village, for different age groups, unmarried young people, older people. And in Hungary at that time, folk dance had largely gone out of everyday life in villages. There were some people who still did it, but it wasn't a part of daily life. Folk dance was limited to the stage. It was highly Soviet influenced by the Moiseyev dance group and others like it. So some musicians in Budapest got word that maybe there were still some communities in Transylvania where dance was a part of everyday life. It was very difficult to get out there because that was Romania. It was a different country.
Right.
Well, some finally did. They got to Sikh. And when they did, they found a town, which I also found when I went there in 86, about 15 years after the first researchers went there.
Right.
That people dressed their everyday clothes was what we would call costumes.
Wow.
And the dance was a part of the courtship. It was a part of weddings. There was no other kind of dance in the village. It was only the folk dance.
Right, right.
So these researchers came back to Hungary and started spreading the word about this. And there was a strong component of anti-Soviet feeling in it. That
I imagine.
We are Hungarians. This is our dance. We need to learn this as a native language, not the staged choreographed things.
Right.
Yeah, social dance as it's done in the village. And so hundreds of young people would come to these dances, which sometimes the police broke up, and they were trying to learn the dances. Eventually, this movement, the Táncház movement, spread worldwide. There are groups like ours in this country, and as you know, in New Jersey, that focus on the Táncház movement, but also in Hong Kong, Japan,
Wow,
South America, Europe.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing that how it brings us all together on the worldwide stage, as you just said.
And Americans and people with no Hungarian descent, like the two of us.
Do you think that the Táncház movement, a big part of it was that Hungarians prior to the movement were feeling discouraged because of, the political happenings at the time, and then the movement started because they were maybe tired of being, their culture being suppressed? Do you think that was a contributing factor?
I do. I think it was before 1956 we were feeling that way.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure. It was probably just a little spark of light at the time when the Táncház movement started and the dance was brought from the Transylvanian area back into Hungary, which is pretty amazing.
The Táncház movement is celebrating 50 years this year. So that would put it at 1972.
That's amazing.
Context for when it came to Hungary, that they're marking the start of it.
So you guys were really on the forefront of this movement, which is pretty impressive because you've been around for 40 years now.
Pretty close. Although I didn't come to meet Tisza until I moved to the Washington, D.C. area in 2005. Cathy had a giant head start on me there.
There's nothing wrong with coming in to something great, which Cathy started. So did you dance prior to this, Joseph, before you joined Tisza Ensemble?
When I was finishing up high school, we had a local dermatologist who had done folk dancing in college.
Oh, that's cool.
And he taught some folk dances to the youth in the community.
Wow.
And that was my first introduction to folk dance.
Okay.
And he would tell us stories about when he was at college, his folk dance group would travel around the world and Eastern Europe or Europe, and all the people he would meet and the interesting cultures. And that piqued my interest. And so I went to college and also did international folk dancing, did that touring. And initially, we just learned choreographed dances, including Hungarian for the stage. But while I was in college, there was a small Hungarian band the next city over.
Okay.
And they had been going to Hungary and learning the Táncház style. And so I started going up there and learning in the Primas's house, the little fiddler. In his little living room, just 3 or 4 people. The fiddler would play and a dance teacher would teach us. We'd push some boxes out of the way and dance in this little 5 foot by 5 foot space.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to improvisational Hungarian Táncház style dancing.
Wow, that's a pretty amazing start to your dancing. And you never really know, what's going to inspire you because I'm sure, your inspiration kept developing the more you learned.
Exactly.
Which is pretty cool. So something that you mentioned, Cathy, when you were telling us about the Táncház movement, was, and Joseph just mentioned as well, not all the dances are the same. There's regional, and just even in the dance hall itself, people improvise. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? And why is it like that? Why aren't all the dances choreographed?
Okay, well, let me address the regional part of it first.
Okay.
The Hungarian-speaking territory is basically the entire Carpathian Basin and even beyond to the east. And these places were isolated from each other for various reasons, economic, geographical. So, for example, very close to the western border of Hungary, near Austria, you find a very different kind of dance than you do east of the Carpathians, where it's mostly line dances and circle dances.
Okay.
And everything in between. So when we learn the dances, we learn the region. Sometimes it's even which village in the region, because the villages danced a little differently, even if they were just a few miles apart.
Sure.
And even what couple in the village. If there was an elderly couple that the researchers learned from, they would say, oh, this is Erzsi Néni's dance, or this is János Bácsi's dance.
Right.
So that accounts for the regionality. And of course, every region had its own costume. And sometimes it's nearly impossible to do the dances of one region in the costume of the other. The costumes from Western Hungary tended to have very full skirts for the women.
Yes.
But in Transylvania, farther to the east, the turns were very fast, and you just couldn't do those to follow those petticoats. Okay, now getting to the improvisational aspect. There's a bank of our vocabulary of figures from every village, and even from each person in the village, or each man, because the dance is always led by the man.
Right.
He knows, and he hears the music, and he puts the dance together as he's hearing the music. And the woman's responsibility is to follow him, sometimes at breakneck speed and split second.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the communication is one of the things I love the most. He doesn't tell you, you don't talk to each other, you just feel what he wants.
Thinking about your question, why the individuality, why the improvisation there versus the stage, perhaps just boils down to the fact that we all want to express ourselves, and the community dance gave people a way to express themselves in different ways. Whereas today we have, say, a big sports game and everyone says, wear the color of your sports team. And then you see a wide variety of how people express that. Some people paint their face or their bodies. They'll have full clothes in that color, or their car or their house or their yard. So similarly, I just think these people, they're coming together, they have the community, and each person's individuality comes through within the context of the shared dance steps that Cathy was talking about, that shared vocabulary. For those who aren't familiar with Hungarian dance specifically, if they know a little bit about Latin, salsa dancing, or swing dancing, you see the same kind of thing. You have these basic patterns of steps, but if you watch any group of people dancing together, they can all be doing the same steps, but you're going to see their own individuality come through it. And then, of course, people like to play with the rhythm of the steps, add in something new, just add in something extra. That's what I love about the village improvisational aspect. Of course, if you're doing a stage choreography, especially in the Soviet era, their goal was to have everyone look exactly the same, move exactly the same. They had
makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. They had the young athletic dancers, often ballet trained, so they could all jump very high. They could kick their legs high in unison. And in the village, you're going to have people of all age types. You're going to have the little kids.
Sure.
You're going to have the older people who maybe have seen a lot of years and can't move quite as well as the younger people. So what today someone might consider a different style of, this is an older person's style, this is a younger person's style, I think in the village would just be, these are the people coming together and each is dancing according to their ability and interest in expressing their individuality.
Well, that's a really good way to, describe all of that. Especially, you can almost say that dance and folk dance, Hungarian folk dance, it's like a dialect, but of dance. So like wherever you, just like language, wherever you go, you're speaking the same language, but, just like in the United States, the different places you go, there's a little bit different dialect. Same with the dance and we call them costume, but that was their everyday, their everyday clothing. I knew that folk dancing, that, they have variations. I was just recently at a Hungarian event and they had some teen kids dancing. And they were all doing the same steps, but not choreographed, like not together, not in unison. So I did see just recently an example of that. And
Nice.
it's really interesting to watch that, because even though they were doing different things, it still looked together. They still were dancing together to the music. It was lovely to see, especially lovely to see that young people are also taking an interest in their heritage with the folk dancing. The Tanzhaus movement, it's been around for 50 years, you said, Joseph, and you guys have been around for 40 years. Can you tell us, how have you seen change in the 40 years that you've been an ensemble?
Well, one of the changes is one I kind of mentioned before. When we first started learning the dances, we would learn from a region. In fact, even before that, we have a dancer in our group, or had a dancer in our group, who was dancing back before the Tanzhaus movement. And what they called all the dances from Transylvania back then was Seike. Okay, but that's only a part of the dance from Transylvania. Right. So when we started going to workshops, it was, okay, we're learning the dances from the Kolotasek region in Transylvania. And then we would learn from the village of Mira. And then we would learn from Tutsegian Ondrash in Transylvania, in the village of Mira. Right. You know, what were his figures? What were his father's figures? And so on. Right. So that's one change I've noticed. Another thing, too, is that in a village, people only did the dances that they knew in their village. Right. That might be anywhere from one dance to 8. Okay. Or even more east of the Carpathians. It could be 35 to 50 in that area, because they were all line dances. But when we started learning, we would learn dances from a number of different villages. Not all at the same workshop. Usually one workshop would concentrate on one region or village. But if you go to a Tanzhaus, an event in the revival, there might be 5, 6, maybe more. Right. That lasts about anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes at a time, and you have the same partner. That's pretty amazing. I feel like your group started like almost collecting data on dance from the different regions. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's almost like you've been building this library of dance, whereas some people, maybe even over in Hungary, only know, their region. So you've learned a lot of those things, and you have a lot to offer with your ensemble. So let's talk a little bit more about your dance ensemble now. On your website, you offer a lot. You have videos, you have the actual dance steps written out. I was very impressed by that.
Yes, that's a work in progress to write out the dance steps to help people, but yes.
That's very impressive. And you also offer information just on places that you're performing. It's very detailed. The videos themselves are very detailed. So if you want to learn about the different styles of dance and types of dance, do you want to tell us a little bit about those things that you offer for people to just log onto your website and watch?
So I'm the one who builds and creates the website, for better, for worse.
That's fantastic.
Constantly in a process of development constantly. But the goal, especially in this modern age, is just to give people some information if they Google Hungarian folk dancing, and to provide some resources, like you said, the videos, so they can have a chance to learn a few steps, or to learn about upcoming events where they can come and see us dance in person. Or one of our key things we've done, not since the pandemic, is have the Hungarian folk dance classes.
Yes.
So that people can actually come and learn in person and not just watch a video, which is one way to learn, but can be a lot harder than learning live from an instructor.
Right.
Partially this grew out of when I was in college. We keep throwing these dates like 50 years, 40 years around. So this makes me feel old. But when I was in college learning folk dancing, the internet did exist at that time.
Okay.
But there were basically no folk dance resources on it. And I would constantly search for stuff and couldn't find it. And I would go into the library, and there were just a few books on folk dance. And mainly what we relied on were videos that the groups had taken when they were touring abroad of other folk dance groups, or of teaching sessions, was our main source of learning. So that was before it was widespread to have the Hungarian teachers coming out and teaching everything. So partially out of that experience of not being able to put my finger on any information on the internet, I wanted our Tisza website to at least be a starting point. And even my idea was, even if people didn't like the way we presented dances or information, that maybe that would be a catalyst for them to do their own websites, their own videos,
Sure.
just to grow the database of knowledge that was out there. Not that we had to be saying it in the most perfect way or the most correct way, but just as a starting point for a dialogue and inspire other people. And of course, now, today, especially with YouTube, there are so many folk dance resources available to people on the internet. It just makes me jealous for back when I was in college. It was so limited.
I think that what they say, that necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's the correct quote, but I feel like that's what you did. You couldn't find what you were really looking for. So you said, I'm going to make it myself. So, and you've really created a library, really, for of resources for people, because
Yes.
I think there's a lot to look at. So if you have the opportunity, everybody should definitely go check out their website, which we'll give you the information a little bit further in the interview. But it's pretty amazing that you've done all that. And just for the record, I did not have the internet during college years, so don't feel that old. You're still good.
That's right.
So you said you do offer dance classes. I know they haven't started up yet, but I imagine soon that they will be. And what type of dance classes do you offer? What age group? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It was for adults, well, anyone 16 and up.
Okay.
And basically, it was a class to enable you to participate in a dance house.
Right.
So we would take usually 6 weeks for one village or one region and teach kind of the basics of the dances from that area, so people could come to the dance house and feel like they knew something. And we would talk about the history of the village. And
that's great. So you said you take 6 weeks to do one village. So do your classes last a semester? Are they a year long? How does that usually work?
Usually 6 weeks.
Okay.
And it was adults. I did teach a couple of children separately for a few years. And then the young man got to be good enough to to join with us in the performing group.
That's exciting.
Yeah, he's only 13 and he's in the performing group.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm sure that he's a valuable member if he's in the group at 13.
So just to help give you a better idea of the class format, we would meet once a week for about an hour and a half in Cathy's house. You'll find a lot of these hardcore folk dancers like Cathy actually have a dance room built into their house.
Wow.
And that's where the Tisza group performs, where we practice for our performances and for learning the dances. And that's where we would hold the class. So the people would come out, we'd dance for an hour and a half and sometimes longer if they wanted. We'd do review videos. Back when I was coming up through folk dance, it was often hard to get videos of any of the steps. And some teachers, I'm not thinking Hungarian dancing necessarily, but just folk dance teachers at the time were very leery of having themselves videotaped doing the steps. And so often there was only one specific review session at the end of a class or a workshop when people were maybe allowed to record the video, or the camp would do an official video, and you would pay extra to get that. But so that was part of my wanting to make things available, was even though we would usually do our own video of the class material, anyone else who had their phone there or any camera, they can record the steps at any point and have their own copy that they can look at whenever they want. But anyway, once a week for 6 weeks, we'd build up these steps. And then we would often ask the people what kind of material they would want to do for the next class.
That's pretty amazing. I love the fact that, Cathy, you have it at your house. It's super authentic that it's a dance house in your house. That's really a great concept.
Yes.
I don't think you could get more authentic than that. You have a very active performance schedule. I know you've been pretty busy over the past few months, and you have a lot of things coming up, which you can also see on the website. Are there any performances that stick out to you, or places that you've performed that, of course, they're all amazing and memorable, but have there been any places or time periods that just really stick out, whether recently or over the past 40 years?
Kennedy Center. Do you remember that, Joseph?
Yes, that was probably 2015.
So what was memorable about it?
Well,
the Kennedy Center.
Right. So the Kennedy Center has, if you're in the DC area, that's the premium arts center for performances. They have something, just to be like full disclosure, they have something they call the Millennium Stage, which is not their main opera house stage, but it is a stage with lighting that they set up on the side for people to come. And those are free events that they'll advertise, but then they can bring in lots of specialty groups, usually local groups, to do folk dance or other performances. So yes, we were in the Kennedy Center and that was amazing. But just to be clear, we were not like on the opera house stage.
Well, it was still an honor to be there. I'm sure that's why it was so memorable of an event.
Actually, many years before that,
yes,
we were in the Terrace Theater on the stage with a full evening concert.
Wow.
That was before my time.
Yes.
Well, part of our annual performance schedule, I guess is what sticks out to me, is we like to participate in the New Jersey Hungarian Day the first weekend of June. And locally, we have the Hungarian Bazaar, the Christmas Bazaar, that happens each fall, usually in November. And for the last few years, they've had the EU Day here in May, which the embassies open up to each showcase their own culture. So those are three big events that I think of each year that we always know that we're going to be involved in. And then over the years, there have been other various food festivals and local performances, cultural events and stuff. But those three are a chance to really connect with the broader Hungarian community in the area and also to get more of the public involved. Because when you have a big festival like that, you can draw in people who don't normally know about it.
Exactly. And I think that's also part of connecting people to their heritage because, not everybody lives near a Hungarian community or has access to that, but they're usually willing to take the time out to go to a Hungarian festival if they know something's happening. They might plan their day around it. And then, to be not only exposed to people and the food, but like the dance, you're really giving them the whole plate of Hungarian heritage goodness by performing at these places, which is pretty great.
I was going to say that this European Union Day, this year, we were lucky enough to dance to the music of Solona and his band, who's one of the top bands in Hungary.
I was just going to note that a lot of people probably come to the Hungarian events or other ethnic events because they'll see the food menu and they like trying these different foods. And then it can be a pleasant surprise for them when they see the folk dancing and say, oh, wow, that was really cool. And we've actually had dancers come and learn, come to our group, both the performing group and the classes, through meeting us or seeing us at these events where they just came to be social or to just have some of the food. And then they were surprised to see the dancing. And often there's some participatory dancing at one point during these festivals. And that can give people a little flavor of what it's like to actually dance Hungarian dancing. And that can often bring them in for more.
I agree because I've seen, people just even start to dance on the side when the dancers are dancing and when the music is playing, and it's intoxicating. I think when you're there, and it just envelops you. Everything about it: the smells of the food, the music, the live music, the dancing. It's really a great experience. So,
You know what else is intoxicating? The palinka.
Oh, that is literally intoxicating. 40 years. I know, Joseph, you haven't been there for 40 years, but that's a long time. Do you have any anniversary celebrations plans?
Our anniversary celebration is on September 10th.
Okay.
Basically, it's going to be a big dance house. Well, not all that big. The venue only fits 120 people, but
okay.
And we'll be having. There's a couple coming from Chicago, Hungarian professional Hungarian dancers.
Great.
Who live in this country now.
That's exciting.
We hope we'll be leading some of the dances.
That's exciting. So is this open to the public?
It will be.
Okay.
We decided, since the venue is so small, that we wanted to have what we called tiers of invitations.
That makes sense.
I think we're just about ready to throw it open to the public now.
Well, that's exciting. I'm sure you'll have all of that information on your website, but that seems like it's going to be an exciting celebratory day. What I liked about something on your website that we didn't talk about is that if you don't live in the DC area where Tisza Ensemble is located, you've listed lots of other places around North America where you can find other dance ensembles. And one of the goals of this podcast is really to connect the circles of Hungarian heritage. So because many people don't live near the DC area. So can you tell us about like that list that you've compiled?
Yes, it's probably not an exhaustive list, but I tried to find links to groups in the Hungarian communities that I know about, East, West Coast, Middle Coast, Canada, so that, yes, people in different parts of the country could find something a little closer to them.
Right.
Than traveling out to the nation's capital every time they want to do a little dance.
Which is something they should definitely do. But if they don't
Absolutely.
have the time or resources, they can check out your website, which has all of those. And if anyone's listening and they know of something that's not listed on your website, I'm sure they can reach out to you through there to alert you of another place to add to the list. Well, I feel like you guys were the innovators of all of this. So take credit where credit is due. It's all about connecting all of us. And, whether you're watching traditional Hungarian dancing or participating, it's really an excellent way to connect to, whether it's the Hungarian heritage or any other heritage. And I think that the Tisza Dance Ensemble is on the forefront and has been for 40 years. So I want to congratulate you on that. I've learned a lot of great things about what you're doing, what you have been doing. That's an amazing thing. So you should definitely check out the Tisza Dance Ensemble in the Washington, D.C. area. Tell us where people can find you on the social medias.
On the bottom of the website, there are some social media icons.
Perfect.
So one of the mother of the younger guy who now dances in our group, she has set up an Instagram and a Twitter account for Tisza. So she'll often post events there. We also will post on Facebook because for some people, that's the way they learn about information.
Sure.
And then on our YouTube channel, we'll post videos of our performances. So those are different ways to connect through the website. But yes, clicking on those icons are great ways. As far as I know, we're not on TikTok right now.
Not yet, right?
I'm kind of opposed to vertical video, which makes me somewhat of a heretic in the modern day.
Well, I'm sure that that'll be your next adventure because you really are out on all the socials. Like you said, people connect to information in different ways. So whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, maybe eventually your website, there's definitely a lot of information out there, whether you're watching or looking to participate. Really, you should be the Tisza Dance Ensemble and archival information and what's happening now. What's up with Tisza Dance Ensemble. I definitely look forward to talking to you, Joseph and Cathy, again. And I appreciate that you took the time out today to be on the Hungarian Heritage podcast. And I appreciate all of the information you had to say. And I think the listeners have a lot to unpack and enjoy by connecting with you at your website. So is there anything else you want to leave us with?
Well, thanks so much for letting us talk about our passion for
I'm passionate about it now too.
Yes, thank you for having us. And hopefully more people will become aware of Hungarian dancing. Not because everyone has to like the same flavor of dance, just like you don't have to like the same flavor of food. But I think for many people, it's a very pleasant surprise when they do discover it and they can participate in it. And it can be like swing or salsa or something.
Sure.
But what Hungarian dancing brings is lots of slapping and stomping. And that for me, being a percussive drummer, also just adds a lot of richness to the dance.
I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger because there is a lot of slapping and that type of stuff in an appropriate way. So people should definitely check it out on your website.
Slapping yourself, not others.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But thank you so much for being here. It was certainly a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you both soon. Thank you, Cathy and Joseph.
Thank you. It was great, Christine.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. Don't forget to check the show notes for information about this episode and how you can connect with Cathy and Joseph at the Tisza Dance Ensemble on all of their social media platforms. If you're looking for more information about Hungarian folk dancing, Tisza Dance Ensemble's website has all the information you are looking for. So make sure that you connect with Cathy and Joseph so that you too can experience a little bit of Hungarian heritage, whether you watch Hungarian dancing on their website or maybe join one of their dance classes if you're in the DC area. Who knows? Maybe you'll even get to see them perform at a Hungarian event or festival near you. Thanks to my audio editor, Tori Irvin, for working her audio magic on this episode. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with a special license from Envato Market. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts so we can continue to connect our modern lives with our Hungarian heritage. Until next time, goodbye everyone. Sziasztok mindenkinek!